maybe then a nightmare for Sir Keir Starmer. Interesting to hear Christopher Hope say that he does not believe that Keir Starmer will change his policy. Well, rejoining us, former Special Advisor Charlie Rowley and former Labour MP Dennis McShane, joining a former Conservative MP, Michael Portillo. We've got all the formers here today. Dennis, earlier I was saying that it struck me that the Labour Party might be quite shaken by this, in Scotland in particular, because in Scotland, if you're to the left of the Labour Party and if you're more in favour of an unconditional sort of ceasefire, you have somewhere else to go, which is the SNP, which you don't have in England. And you've tested the Portillo thesis out on a senior Labour figure, is that right?
That's right. I thought it was very interesting and a fair point. So I did call one of the most veteran Labour communication chiefs and campaigners, highly respected, won't give her name, it's not fair. Her point was simply that George Galloway is deeply unpopular in Scotland. He actually campaigned with the far right against Scottish independence, which for the SNP is far more important than Israel, frankly. So he doesn't have much traction there.
He's a Brexiteer as well.
He does everything. I mean, he said Bradford, when he was elected there in one of these wonderful by-elections that everybody said would change the face of British politics, he declared Bradford must become an Israel-free zone. Well, people still eat Jaffa oranges in Bradford, and he lost in the next general election.
Charlie, Labour, they have got problems. I mean, they've made such a massive mistake. Well, I say mistake, that's probably an understatement, in Rochdale. This could have ramifications, could it not, for the rest of the country?
I think so. And look, Sir Keir Starmer has positioned himself to say that after 4 years he's changed the Labour Party, so rooting out anti-Semitism, when clearly they then had a candidate that went on to make the most appalling comments, saying, blaming Israel for, effectively, the terrorist attack that took place on the 7th of October. It was a botched selection. They had a terrible candidate that they had to disown, having stood by him, and took weeks of negative press coverage, which, obviously didn't help their cause. They got stuck with this candidate. They've lost this by-election, which was a Labour stronghold. They should have won. In any other normal times, they would have won it. But it's the complete failure of the vetting process, the candidate, the campaign itself, which is why that they have lost so badly. And
the result is now we have George Galloway, a very divisive figure, and the campaign for anti-Semitism has come out this morning and said we are extremely concerned this morning.
Exactly so, and it is a cause for concern because the election itself, as George Galloway said in his victory speech there, that this is for Gaza. So it was an election based on international and foreign affairs. It had nothing to do, effectively, with the people of Rochdale. And I do feel for those people who are clearly worried about the cost of living, about the economy, about schools, about hospitals, about healthcare, and all the rest of it. They've got a member of Parliament now for a number of months that is just going to be focused, it seems to me, on international affairs and not delivering for what's right for the people of Rochdale.
The detailed result is on the screen, only the first 6 or 7 there. Can I make a point that I've not heard anyone else make, that there were 11 candidates and they were 11 men? Strange.
Indeed.
Dennis McShane, you heard Christopher Hope a moment ago saying that he did not believe that this would have the effect of changing Keir Starmer's position, his wording on a ceasefire. Do you share that confidence?
It's not a question of confidence. Keir is broadly, or Labour is broadly where the Canadian government is, the Australian government is, Germany, France, the great democracies of the world. No, they are all desperately unhappy with the Netanyahu aggression, the unbelievable 30,000 people killed, maybe 70,000 injured, utterly unacceptable. And that's coming out more and more strongly in statements by John Healey, the Defence Secretary, David Lammy, the Shadow Defence Secretary for the time being. I must say this by-election may well be regarded as the first big by-election defeat in the Starmer era, but we can come to that later. And what they're not prepared to go right down the road in saying, in effect, support Hamas. And that is the giant dilemma. I mean, Mr. Putin's doing that. He's just invited them all to Moscow.
He's calling for a ceasefire support.
No, it isn't. It isn't. He's called for a ceasefire, qualified by humanitarian. Hamas' principal and only demand, supported by their supporters around the world, like Mr. Putin, is for a permanent ceasefire. That may be a nuanced thing, and it certainly is, but let's be very, very clear, when Israel withdrew every Israeli, literally pulled them out by the ankles, dumped them in trucks who were living in Gaza, and they thought they got a deal then with the Palestinians, and 2 months later the missiles started falling down and killing Jews. We're not saying everything Netanyahu's done has been completely and utterly wrong. I can accept that. And like with the IRA, Michael, you'll remember Mrs. Thatcher was incredibly tough. Don't talk to them. Don't let them on the television. And then along came John Major, who said George war is better than war. And then Tony Blair, we got the Good Friday Peace Agreement. So we just have to hope and pray within Israel. Some people say, even till you make peace with your enemy, never with your friends, that there'll be a change. It's not going to happen now with all the tensions. We don't know the fate of the hostages that are going on. So, but believe me, Labour, nobody I know in the Labour Party is defending Israel.
Of course, a very important difference in the SNP motion before Parliament last week was it accused Israel of inflicting collective punishment on Gaza. The importance of that is that is regarded as a war crime. There was no way that Labour, as I say, a party that thinks it's going to be in government later in the year, could accuse Israel of collective punishment. Dennis McShane and Charlie Rowley, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I've rather lost track of whether we're going to see you again, but it's lovely. It's lovely.
Would you like me to
see.
play something on the piano? Would you like us to do some more renditions of